Hey folks, this is Jason LaPardis with Turkeys for Tomorrow. We're in Texas today, about to trap some wild turkeys. The reason why is we care about turkeys, and we want to make sure that we understand this nesting and brood ecology of these birds. Now, this couldn't happen just between us because we have to use key partners like Texas Park and Wildlife, Sitka, Onyx, LSU, Tennessee Tech. We have all these great people coming together because they care about the wild turkey.
So how we capture Rio Grande wild turkeys is different than the eastern subspecies. What we do is create this rectangular cage and put a funnel on it. We pre-bait these sites, and when the turkey goes into the funnel, they get confused. The benefit is there's no net being deployed, they're not overly stressed. We're able to get in there quickly and get out with birds having minimal time with us, and we release them right on site.
So the broad overview of what we're doing here is we wanted to test out and see if here in this coastal plain of South Texas, how easy it would be for us to put out some transmitters as kind of a pilot program. Where we come out here, we see how easy it is to put out traps, we see how many turkeys are out here, and whether or not it's feasible for us to be able to, have a whole project where we can, broaden our scope and start to answer some really important scientific questions that both researchers and turkey hunters and managers, all three of which, would be interested in.
Once we capture these birds, we're going to equip adult females with GPS backpack units. What's really cool about these GPS units, you're able to capture hourly locations with these and actually go in and find where the bird's nesting. All right, so we're collecting blood on these birds, and this is going to be used for disease surveillance, and there's some genetics work that we would like to do as well. We're putting bands on these birds, and the reason being is the GPS backpack has a unique identifier on it, but if the backpack would fall off, we still have a second way to validate if you would happen to see the bird.
One question I've been working on is whether or not we're setting our dates of nest initiation at the right day. And I'll tell you why that's very important. So the wild turkey is one of the only game species in North America, and I think across the world, where we're hunting them when their nests are happening, when they're actually, going through producing their young. So it's very important that we time our seasons right to make sure that we're not harvesting the males too early to where they can't have, they can't be able to breed with as many females as possible. That's a big part of why we put transmitters on females, the GPS transmitters, so we can see exactly when females start to have their first nest of the season. When we can see that, we can say, okay, let's make sure that we set our, season date according to whatever date that, that first nest initiation is, right? So what I want to do is I want to go back through the data in East Texas and in other places where we've been capturing wild turkeys, and I can go back and see, okay, when did these groups of female wild turkeys actually start? And then that way I can see when, a more accurate estimation of when that first nest initiation is happening. And also, we can see whether or not things like weather or things like a bad winter or a good winter is going to be affecting that. So that's something that not only researchers care about, because we're interested in the ecology of the species, managers care about that because they want to know when to set their hunting dates. And landowners want to know that too because they want to know, when, to not be disturbing the females. So organizations like TFT, they're all very important for connecting scientists to the more broad public, the stakeholders. You have to be able to connect the people who are actually doing that science and making the data and connect it to people who are actually out there on the ground doing the management, connect it to people who are spending money on trying to make this happen. You know, how do we make sure that wild turkeys are going to be something that our children, our grandchildren, and many generations beyond that are something they're going to be able to enjoy?
We do have a very large number of turkeys here. Our biggest factors are going to be brush management and habitat management by fire and by, you know, brush clearing, land clearing, kind of like what you can see here behind us. And we've seen a direct reflection of that in our population increase. When we look at our brush clearing, we're just cleaning out the undergrowth and allowing fresh vegetation to rise from under that, where it's not choked out by a lot of this catclaw and stuff that you can see right here around us. So a way that a lot of these projects works, we'll come in with a skid steer and we'll clear out a lot of the underbrush and we'll leave the big trees in place for, in this case, would not necessarily be roosting habitat, but just for cover, you know. And then as best we can, we'll rake and pile up and burn what debris we can and allow that stuff to sit for a year for the grass to grow, and then we'll come back with a prescribed fire and really clean the rest of the floor layer off. Annually, we'll burn anywhere from 15 to 30,000 acres based on the rainfall that we've had years previous. For the most part, we'll burn every pasture every year after we've had a good winter freeze, and we're burning before the spring to try to get the old grass burned off and allow new growth so that those turkeys will have fresh vegetation at the soil level and to benefit the soil nutrients back in it by burning, you know, the brush that's basically just taking place there that they're not benefiting from.
Dan, this is obviously a very special place. Tell us a little bit about what you do different.
The first thing I would say is common sense approach. If you have too many of anything, it's a bad thing. And obviously, if you have too little, it's also a bad thing. So you have to try to keep your numbers balanced. I felt like that I could absolutely, without a problem, kill 60 birds off of this property every year. So I cut that in half. Because the things I can't control are, I don't know when we're gonna have a bad hatch. You know, I don't know when we're gonna have a hurricane. I don't know when we're gonna have one of those bad freezes, all of which can affect, you know, the turkeys. But what I do know is that I can say, Hagen, we're gonna kill 30 birds. And, you know, he may say, I think we can do 50. And I say, well, I know we can, but we're not. We're gonna do 30. So I always try to make sure that I manage the numbers very conservatively. The other is annual burns. You know, we burn as much as we possibly can. Anywhere that grass stands, where the brush will allow it, we burn. And when that grass comes back, you know, it's obviously more tender for the animals, more nutritious for the animals. Where turkeys are concerned, they can see the predators coming, which leads me to the last and probably most important thing is the predator control. You know, we're always hunting bobcats out here. We catch anywhere from 150 to 300 bobcats a year. Somebody's coyote hunting pretty much every night, at least 300 days a year. Our turkey population by far exceeded quadruple and maybe more after we upped our coon trapping from just allowing, you know, kids from town to come out and play with traps to putting over 100 traps around all of our known roost areas. The turkey population absolutely exploded. I see for the future of wild turkey is going to be just fine.